Dr. Zixnax couldn't believe her compound eyes. The sight before her was so utterly absurd, so completely contrary to everything she'd learned in her centuries of medical training, that she was half convinced she'd accidentally ingested some hallucinogenic spores during lunch. There, in the middle of the pristine white emergency bay of Galactic Central Hospital, stood a human. You know, one of those fleshy bipeds from that backwater death planet Earth? Yeah, that kind of human. And this particular specimen of Homo sapiens was currently elbow deep in the torso of a critically wounded Zorblaxian ambassador. Now, Zixnax had seen some weird stuff in her time as head surgeon of the galaxy's premier medical facility. She'd reattached tentacles, regrown exoskeletons, and even once had to surgically remove a quantum singularity from a patient's lower intestine. Don't ask, it was a wild weekend in the Andromeda galaxy. But this took the cake, frosting in the entire bakery. The human, Dr. Sarah Chen, according to her hastily slapped-on visitor's badge, was quite literally holding the ambassador's 3 hearts in her bare hands, massaging them back to life, while simultaneously using her elbows to pinch shut a gaping wound in the Zorblaxian's primary circulatory system. What in the name of the cosmic egg are you doing? Zixnax finally managed to screech, her voice a mixture of horror, fascination, and grudging admiration. Dr. Chen glanced up, her face eerily calm despite being covered in a rainbow assortment of alien bodily fluids. "Oh, hello there," she said cheerfully, as if she was greeting a neighbor over a white picket fence, rather than performing improvised surgery on a dying alien dignitary. "I'm just giving our friend here a little help. His heart stopped, so I'm manually pumping them while also trying to stop this rather impressive arterial bleed. Don't suppose you have any duct tape handy?" Zixnax's mandibles clacked in disbelief. "Duct tape," she repeated, the unfamiliar Earth term feeling clumsy on her mouth parts. "Never mind," Sarah shrugged. "An impressive feat considering her current arm placement. I'll make do. Say, could you be a dear and grab that bottle of high-proof Rigelian whiskey from my bag? I need to sterilize the wound." At this point, Zixnax was seriously considering retiring early and taking up a nice, safe profession, like antimatter juggling or kraken wrestling. Anything would be less stressful than dealing with this insane human doctor. But before she could voice her objections or tender her resignation, a weak gurgle emanated from the Zorblaxian ambassador. Incredibly, against all odds and several laws of xenobiology, the alien was stabilizing. "There we go." Sarah grinned, her teeth alarmingly white and numerous to Zixnax's alien sensibilities. "See, nothing to it. Now, if you could just hold these hearts for a moment, I need to close up this nasty gash." In a daze, Zixnax found herself gently cradling the ambassador's trio of cardiac organs while the human began to, was she sewing, with what appeared to be some sort of polymer filament extracted from her own clothing. "You know," Sarah chatted casually as she stitched with the speed and precision of an automated loom. "Back on Earth, we have this saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Though in med school, we usually amended it to necessity is the mother of oh shit, I hope this works." She chuckled at her own joke, the sound mixing bizarrely with the wet squelches of alien flesh. Zixnax found her voice again, though it came out as more of a strangled wheeze. But the sterilization protocols, the non-interference directives, the sacred oath of first utilize only approved Galactic Medical Council equipment. Sarah raised an eyebrow, her hands never stopping their intricate dance of needle and thread. "Look, Doc, it is Doc, right? Those 3 eye stalks practically scream I've spent way too much time in med school. Sometimes you've got to improvise. Where I come from, we call it cowboy medicine." I don't know what a cowboy is," Zixnax admitted, feeling increasingly out of her depth, which, considering she was a 12-limbed cephalopod, like being currently floating in a vat of nutrient-rich suspension fluid, was saying something. "Trust me, it's a compliment. Most of the time." Sarah tied off the last stitch with a flourish. "There. Good as new. Well, maybe not new, but definitely will live to complain about hospital food new." As if on cue, the Zorblaxian ambassador's eyes fluttered open, all 7 of them. What happened?" he croaked in perfect galactic standard. Sarah beamed, slapping the alien heartily on what was probably his shoulder. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Mr. Ambassador. You had a bit of an accident with that matter-antimatter cocktail. I told the bartender those things were trouble, but did he listen? No." The ambassador blinked in confusion, his gaze darting between the gore-splattered human and the shell-shocked Zixnax, who was still awkwardly holding his hearts. Did you save me?" "Oh, it was a team effort," Sarah said modestly, shooting a wink at Zixnax. "I just did a little percussive maintenance on your cardiovascular system, and some creative needlework. You might want to avoid wearing crop tops for a while, by the way." Zyxnax finally snapped out of her stupor. This is unprecedented, unorthodox. Completely against all established medical protocols. She sputtered. Yep, Sarah agreed cheerfully. And yet, our scaly friend here is alive and kicking. Well, maybe not kicking just yet, but definitely alive. I'd call that a win in any star system. The Zorblaxian ambassador looked at Sarah with a mixture of awe and terror, an expression Zyxnax was starting to relate to all too well. You're one of those humans, aren't you? From that death world, Sarah struck a pose, her blood-stained scrub somehow making the effect more dramatic rather than less. Guilty as charged. Dr. Sarah Chen, trauma surgeon extraordinaire, at your service, though I usually prefer to introduce myself before I go rooting around in someone's innards. Call me old-fashioned. Zyxnax felt a headache building in all three of her brains. But how? Why? Where did you even come from? Sarah's grin turned slightly sheepish. Well, funny story that. I was actually here on a cultural exchange program. Observe alien medical techniques, share some human insights, maybe enjoy a few non-toxic local delicacies. I certainly wasn't expecting to perform emergency surgery in the middle of the hospital lobby. This isn't the lobby, Zyxnax pointed out weakly. This is a restricted emergency care unit. Oh, is it? Sarah looked around with exaggerated surprise. I just followed the screaming. Usually leads me where I need to be. The Zorblaxian ambassador, who had been quietly taking in this exchange, suddenly let out a booming laugh. The sound was somewhere between a foghorn and a cement mixer having an existential crisis. By the great void, I like you, human. You've got guts. Sarah's eyes twinkled mischievously. I should hope so. Though at the moment, I'm more intimately acquainted with your guts, Mr. Ambassador. Zyxnax felt her headache intensify. She had a sinking feeling that her quiet, orderly life as head of Galactic Central's medical division was about to get a lot more human. Dr. Chen, she said, trying to inject some authority into her voice, despite the fact that she was still holding 3 alien hearts like some bizarre juggling act. While your unorthodox methods seem to have been effective in this instance, I must insist that you— Oh, hold that thought. Sarah interrupted, her attention suddenly fixed on a commotion near the entrance of the emergency bay. Looks like we've got incoming. Multiple casualties, if I'm not mistaken. And is that— Yes, I do believe that's a case of spontaneous teleportation gone wrong. Oh, this should be fun. And with that, the human doctor was off, charging towards the new medical emergency with the enthusiasm of a Xin warrior spotting an all-you-can-eat buffet. Zyxnax watched her go, a mixture of dread and reluctant excitement bubbling up in her thorax. She turned to the Zorblaxian ambassador, who was looking considerably perkier despite his recent brush with death. I don't suppose you'd be willing to use your diplomatic influence to get her deported? Zyxnax asked hopefully. The ambassador's laugh rattled the medical equipment. Are you kidding? And miss out on all this entertainment? Not a chance, doctor. I haven't felt this alive in centuries. Zyxnax sighed, gently placing the ambassador's hearts back into his chest cavity. She had a feeling this was the start of a very long, very strange new chapter in her medical career. As if to confirm her suspicions, Sarah's voice echoed from across the emergency bay. Hey, Doc Zyx, you wouldn't happen to have any peanut butter, would you? And maybe a bicycle pump? Trust me, it's for science. Zyxnax closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and decided that maybe, just maybe, it was time to learn how to think a little more human. Several hours and many violations of Galactic Medical Council guidelines later, Dr. Zyxnax found herself sitting in her office, staring blankly at the wall. The events of the day played on repeat in her mind, each replay more unbelievable than the last. There was a tentative knock at her door, followed by the hesitant entry of Dr. Sarah Chen. The human looked significantly less gore-splattered than earlier, though there was still a suspicious blue stain on her left shoe that Zyxnax decided not to inquire about. Hey there, Doc Zyx, Sarah said, her tone uncharacteristically subdued. Got a minute? Zyxnax gestured vaguely with one of her tentacles, which Sarah correctly interpreted as an invitation to sit. The human perched on the edge of a chair clearly designed for a being with a very different anatomy. So, Sarah began, fidgeting slightly. I wanted to apologize. For earlier, I know I kind of steamrolled over your protocols and procedures, and that wasn't cool of me. Back on Earth, I'm used to working in high-pressure, low-resource environments. War zones, disaster areas, that kind of thing. I guess I forgot I wasn't in Kansas anymore. She paused, then added, that's an Earth reference. Means I'm not in my usual stomping grounds. Zyxnax remained silent for a long moment, her compound eyes studying the human intently. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Chen, do you know why I became a doctor? Sarah blinked, clearly not expecting this response. because you have a natural talent for juggling multiple limbs and organs at once. Despite herself, Zix-Nax felt a chuckle bubble up from her thorax. While that is certainly a useful skill in my line of work, no, I became a doctor because I wanted to save lives, to make a difference in the vast, often uncaring expanse of our galaxy. She leaned forward, her eye stalks focusing intently on Sarah. Today I watched you break every rule in our medical textbooks. You used primitive tools, unconventional methods, and at one point I'm fairly certain you were humming what you called a sea shanty while performing microsurgery on Zorblaxian's neural cluster. Sarah had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. In my defense, it helps me focus. And what shall we do with the drunken sailor has a great rhythm for suturing. Zix-Nax held up a tentacle, silencing her. And yet she continued, despite all of this, or perhaps because of it, you saved more lives today than I have in the past standard solar cycle. You didn't just think outside the box, Dr. Chen. You took the box, turned it inside out, folded it into an origami swan, and then used it to splint a fractured tentacle. Sarah's face split into a grin. I'm going to take that as a compliment. As you should. Zix-Nax nodded. What I'm trying to say, Dr. Chen, is that while your methods are unorthodox, to say the least, they are undeniably effective. And in the end, isn't that what truly matters? Saving lives, easing suffering, making the universe a slightly less terrible place. The human's eyes widened in surprise. So you're not mad? Zix-Nax let out a sound that was part sigh, part laugh. Oh, I'm furious. You've left me with a mountain of paperwork, several very confused patients, and I'm fairly certain the Galactic Medical Council is going to have my tentacles for this. But she paused, her voice softening. But I'm also grateful, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit inspired. Sarah's grin, if possible, grew even wider. Does this mean I get to stay? Against my better judgment, yes, Zix-Nax confirmed. The Zorblaxian ambassador has already put in an official request for you to be made a permanent part of our medical staff. Something about bringing much-needed excitement to these sterile halls. I believe he's also planning to name his next clutch of offspring after you. Sarah pumped her fist in victory. Yes, interstellar house call. For the win. Though, maybe we can skip the part about the alien babies. I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of commitment. Zix-Nax felt her mandibles twitch in what might have been a smile. I do have one condition, Dr. Chen. Name it, boss lady. Or boss squid. What's the proper form of address here? Dr. Zix-Nax will do fine, she replied dryly. My condition is this: you will teach me. Sarah blinked in surprise. Teach you? But you're the head of the most advanced medical facility in the galaxy. What could I possibly teach you? Zix-Nax leaned back in her suspension tank, her tentacles swirling thoughtfully. You can teach me to think like a human. To see solutions where others see only problems. To improvise, adapt, and occasionally throw the rulebook out the airlock when the situation calls for it. A slow smile spread across Sarah's face. Well, well, well. Looks like there's hope for you yet, Doc Zix. First lesson, we're going to need to work on your high-five technique. It's a crucial human medical skill, trust me. As Sarah enthusiastically attempted to demonstrate a high-five with Zix-Nax's tentacle, the alien doctor found herself wondering, not for the first time that day, what exactly she had gotten herself into. But as she watched the human's infectious enthusiasm, Zix-Nax realized something important. The galaxy was a vast, often terrifying place. But maybe, just maybe, with a little human ingenuity and a lot of patience, it could also be a place of wonder, innovation, and hope. Even if that hope sometimes came in the form of a slightly crazy Earth doctor with a penchant for unconventional surgical techniques and terrible puns. All right, Dr. Chen, Zix-Nax said, her voice filled with a mixture of resignation and excitement. Show me how you humans do medicine. But please, for the love of all that's holy in this galaxy, can we start with something a little less invasive than elbow-deep cardiac massage? Sarah's laughter echoed through the office, a sound that Zix-Nax suspected she'd be hearing a lot more of in the coming days. Oh, Doc Zix, where's the fun in? Sarah's laughter echoed through the office, a sound that Zix-Nax suspected she'd be hearing a lot more of in the coming days. Oh, Doc Zix, where's the fun in that? But all right, if you insist on starting small, how about we begin with something simple, like, say, treating an Arcturian slug-bear's indigestion? Zix-Nax's eye stalks twitched nervously. Simple, you say? Dr. Chen, Arcturian slug-bears are notorious for their volatile digestive systems. The last time we had one in here with indigestion, it took 3 weeks to get the smell out of the ventilation system. Sarah's grin only widened. Exactly. It's the perfect learning opportunity. Low stakes, high potential for hilarious mishaps. What could possibly go wrong? As if on cue, the hospital's intercom crackled to life. Attention all medical staff. We have an incoming patient. Arcturian slug-bear, approximately 3,000 Earth pounds, presenting with severe abdominal distress. ETA 5 minutes. All non-essential personnel, please evacuate the premises. Zixnax's tentacles went limp with disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. Sarah was already on her feet, eyes sparkling with excitement. Now that's what I call perfect timing. Come on, Doc Zix, let's go make some intergalactic medical history. As they rushed out of the office, Zixnax found herself being swept along in Sarah's wake, equal parts terrified and exhilarated. Dr. Chen, wait, we need a plan. We need equipment. We need details. Sarah called over her shoulder, practically skipping down the hospital corridor. All we really need is our wits, our hands, and maybe a really big bottle of antacid. Oh, and a poncho. Trust me on the poncho. Zixnax's mind raced, trying to recall everything she knew about Arcturian slug-bear physiology, but their gastric acid is highly corrosive, and their multiple stomachs are arranged in a non-Euclidean configuration. And let's not even get started on their tendency to projectile vomit when startled. Sarah skidded to a halt in front of the emergency bay doors, turning to face Zixnax with a manic grin. Isn't it great? It's like a biological puzzle box filled with acid and bad temper. This is going to be so much fun. As the doors slid open, revealing the chaotic scene of panicked medical staff and the ominous rumbling of an approaching slug-bear transport, Zixnax realized something profound. In all her years of practicing medicine across the galaxy, she had never once described her job as fun. Challenging, yes, rewarding, certainly, but fun. That was a purely human concept. And yet, as she watched Sarah Chen roll up her sleeves and grab what appeared to be a comically oversized bottle of antacid from a nearby supply closet, Zixnax felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries, the thrill of facing the unknown. All right, Dr. Chen, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Show me how humans handle a stomachache. Sarah tossed her a clear plastic poncho. First rule of slug-bear medicine, always dress for the splash zone. Now, let's go make that big, beautiful blob of indigestion feel better. As they strode together towards the incoming medical emergency, Zixnax couldn't help but think that the galaxy had just gotten a whole lot more interesting. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit more human. The massive doors of the emergency bay groaned open, revealing a sight that would have sent most sentient beings running for the nearest escape pod. The Arcturian slug-bear, a mountain of quivering flesh and oozing mucus, filled the entire transport chamber. Its multiple eyes, scattered seemingly at random across its bulbous body, rolled in various directions, each conveying a different shade of misery. Oh, you poor thing. Sarah cooed, approaching the creature with the casual confidence of someone who hadn't fully grasped the concept of mortal peril. Looks like somebody had a bit too much space, Sushi, huh? Zixnax hovered nervously behind her. Dr. Chen, I really must insist we approach this with caution. Arcturian slug-bears are known for their unpredictable. She never got to finish her sentence. With a sound like 1,000 hoop cushions being sat on simultaneously, the slug-bear's central mouth, or was it an orifice? Zixnax had never been entirely sure, opened wide. Time seemed to slow down as a torrent of multicolored, violently acidic slug-bear vomit ursed through the air. Sarah's reflexes, honed by years of dealing with Earth's most determined projectile vomiters, also known as toddlers, kicked in. She grabbed Zixnax and dove to the side, the massive wave of alien upchuck missing them by mere inches. Woohoo! Sarah whooped, her poncho now splattered with glowing droplets. Now that's what I call a welcome. You okay there, Doc Zix? Zixnax, who had instinctively withdrawn most of her tentacles into her central mass, peeked out cautiously. I think so. But the poor creature, indeed, the slug-bear looked even more miserable than before, if that was possible. It let out a piteous moan that resonated at a frequency that made all the liquid in the room vibrate. Sarah was already on her feet, assessing the situation with a practiced eye. Okay, big fella, let's see what we're dealing with here. Doc Zix, I'm gonna need you to be my extra hands. You up for it? Against her better judgment, Zixnax found herself nodding. What do you need me to do? First things first, we need to neutralize that acid before it eats through the floor and gives the maintenance crew a really bad day. Hand me that industrial-sized antacid, would you? As Zixnax passed over the comically large bottle, Sarah continued. Now Arcturian slug-bears have, what, 5 stomachs? 7, actually, Zixnax corrected automatically. Arranged in a Mobius strip-like configuration that defies most laws of physics. Sarah's eyes lit up. Oh, that is so cool. I mean, not for our big buddy here right now, but generally speaking. Okay, new plan. We're going to need to create a cascading neutralization effect. Think of it like a gastrointestinal domino rally, but with antacids. She began mixing various compounds from her medical kit with the antacid, creating a concoction that glowed faintly and smelled vaguely of mint and ozone. This should do the trick. Now we just need to get it into all 7 stomachs in the right order. Easy peasy. Then Zixnax's eye stalks twitched nervously. And how exactly do you propose we do that? The standard procedure calls for a series of carefully timed injections over the course of several hours, followed by. Sarah was already shaking her head. Nah, that'll take too long. Our slimy friend here is in pain now. We need to think outside the box. Or inside the slug, as it were. She paused, a mischievous glint in her eye. Say, Doc Zix, how do you feel about spelunking? Spelunking. Zixnax repeated, a sense of dread creeping over her. I'm not familiar with that term. Sarah's grin widened. Oh, it's a time-honored Earth tradition. Exploring caves, squeezing through tight spaces, occasionally running from cave-dwelling monstrosities. You know, fun stuff. Before Zixnax could process the implications of this, Sarah was already approaching the slug-bear's central orifice, her antacid concoction in hand. All right, big guy, open wide. Dr. Zixnax and I are going on a fantastic voyage through your digestive system. The slug-bear, perhaps sensing that this strange bipedal creature might actually be able to help, obligingly opened its maw. The stench that wafted out was indescribable, a mix of rotten eggs, swamp gas, and something distinctly alien that made Zixnax's sensory organs want to go on strike. Sarah, seemingly unfazed, turned to Zixnax with a wink. Coming, Doc. I promise it'll be an adventure you'll never forget, or possibly never want to remember. But hey, that's the joy of medicine. Zixnax looked from Sarah's eager face to the cavernous, acidic maw of the slug-bear, and back again. In that moment, she realized that her life had irrevocably changed the moment this human had walked into her hospital. There would be no going back to the safe, predictable world of galactic standard operating procedures. With a resigned sigh that sounded suspiciously like a chuckle, Zixnax extended a tentacle. Lead the way, Dr. Chen. But if we get digested, I'm filing a formal complaint with the Galactic Medical Board. Sarah's laughter echoed off the slimy walls of the slug-bear's mouth as they stepped into the unknown. That's the spirit. Now let's go cure the galaxy's biggest stomachache. And with that, the human doctor and her reluctant alien colleague disappeared into the depths of the Arcturian slug-bear, ready to face whatever gastrointestinal horrors awaited them. The assembled hospital staff watched in awe and confusion, realizing that medicine in the galaxy would never be the same again. As Sarah and Zixnax ventured deeper into the labyrinthine digestive tract of the Arcturian slug-bear, the alien doctor found herself marveling at the human's seemingly bottomless well of enthusiasm. Here they were, knee-deep in a substance that defied description, and several laws of physics, and Sarah Chen was treating it like a day at an amusement park. Oh, would you look at that? Sarah exclaimed, her voice echoing off the pulsating walls of what they assumed was the first stomach. The peristaltic waves are creating a bioluminescent reaction with the acidic secretions. It's like a disco in here. Zixnax, who had retracted most of her sensory tentacles to avoid direct contact with the caustic environment, couldn't quite share the human's excitement. Fascinating, she deadpanned. I don't suppose this light show is giving you any insights into how to cure our patient. Sarah grinned, the eerie glow reflecting off her protective goggles. As a matter of fact, it is. You see how the waves are moving? They're all out of sync. No wonder our big buddy out there is feeling under the weather. We need to get these stomachs dancing to the same beat. She began to hum a tune, her feet tapping out a rhythm that somehow matched the chaotic pulsing of the stomach walls. To Zixnax's astonishment, the surrounding tissue seemed to respond, its movements becoming slightly more coordinated. Are you communicating with the slug-bear's digestive system through music? Zixnax asked, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her disgust. Why not? Sarah shrugged, still keeping the beat. Music is the universal language after all. Even giant space slugs need a good rhythm to keep things moving, if you know what I mean. As they moved from one stomach to the next, Sarah alternated between humming, singing snatches of Earth songs, and occasionally breaking into what she called the macarena. To Zixnax's growing amazement, it seemed to be working. The chaotic churning of the slug-bear's multiple stomachs was gradually syncing up, creating a harmonious, if somewhat nauseating, symphony of digestive processes. At each stomach, Sarah administered a portion of her glowing antacid concoction, timing the doses to match the newly established rhythm. It's all about finding the right groove, she explained as they squeezed through a particularly tight sphincter between the 4th and 5th stomachs. Medicine, music, life, it's all connected. You've just got to listen to the beat. Zixnax, who had never considered grooving as a medical technique, found herself oddly moved by the human's holistic approach. "I must admit, Dr. Chen, your methods are unorthodox but undeniably effective. I don't think I've ever seen an Arcturian slug-bear's digestion respond so quickly to treatment." Sarah beamed, her face streaked with a mixture of sweat and unidentifiable slug-bear fluids. "That's because we're not just treating the symptoms, Doc Zix. We're treating the whole slug. Body, mind, and, well, I'm not sure if they have souls, but if they do, we're treating that too." As they entered the seventh and final stomach, they could feel a change in the atmosphere. The previously chaotic, acidic environment had taken on a calmer, almost peaceful quality. The walls pulsed in a steady, soothing rhythm that matched Sarah's humming perfectly. "We did it," Sarah cheered, doing a little victory dance that sent ripples through the stomach fluid. One harmonized slug-bear digestive system, ready to rock and roll. Or maybe more of a smooth jazz given the current vibe in here. Zaxnax found herself caught up in the human's infectious enthusiasm. "I can't believe it. We actually cured an Arcturian slug-bear's indigestion from the inside out. This goes against every medical protocol I've ever learned." Sarah slung an arm around Zixnax's gelatinous shoulders, careful not to disturb her retracted tentacles. "Welcome to human medicine, Doc Zix, where the protocols are made up and the textbooks are more like vague suggestions." As they made their way back through the now harmonious digestive tract, Zixnax realized that she was actually enjoying herself. The fear and disgust she had felt earlier had been replaced by a sense of accomplishment, and dare she say it, fun. When they finally emerged from the slug-bear's mouth, covered in a rainbow of bodily fluids but triumphant, they were met with a scene of stunned silence. The assembled medical staff stared in disbelief as the massive creature let out a contented burp that rattled the windows. Sarah, ever the showwoman, took a bow. Thank you. We'll be here all week. Don't forget to tip your nurses." Zaxnax, caught up in the moment, found herself joining in the theatrics, waving her tentacles in what she hoped was a victory gesture. "The patient is stabilized and ready for standard post-operative care," she announced, trying to inject some professionalism into the situation. As the medical team rushed forward to take over, Sarah turned to Zixnax with a wide grin. "So, what did you think of your first human-style medical adventure?" Zixnax considered the question carefully. She was covered in substances she'd rather not think about, had violated at least a dozen Galactic Medical Council regulations, and had just participated in what could only be described as a medical conga line through an alien digestive system. And yet, it was illuminating, she admitted. And perhaps, just perhaps, a tiny bit enjoyable. Sarah's laugh echoed through the emergency bay. "Oh, Doc Zix, that's just the beginning. Wait until I show you how we handle Rigelian brain fungi." Spoiler alert, it involves a lot of puns and a surprising amount of interpretive dance. As they headed off to the decontamination showers, Zixnax realized that her ordered, predictable universe had been irrevocably changed by this whirlwind of human chaos. And surprisingly, she was okay with that. After all, as Sarah would say, where's the fun in always playing by the rules? In the weeks following the now infamous slug-bear incident, as it came to be known throughout the hospital, and indeed across much of the civilized galaxy, life at Galactic Central Hospital took on a distinctly different flavor. Dr. Zixnax found herself in the unprecedented position of having to defend her decision to keep Dr. Sarah Chen on staff to the Galactic Medical Council. The hearing was eventful, to say the least. "And you're saying," the ancient Vexoxorian counselor wheezed, his crystalline form vibrating with disbelief, "that this human doctor cured an Arcturian slug-bear's indigestion by, and I quote, doing the macarena inside its stomachs?" Zaxnax's eye stalks twitched nervously. "Well, when you put it like that, it does sound rather awesome." Sarah interrupted, popping up from her seat in the audience. "Don't forget the part about the antacid conga line, Doc Zix. That was the real game changer." The council chamber erupted into chaos, with various alien representatives either loudly protesting this breach of protocol or demanding to know more about this macarena and its apparent medicinal properties. In the end, it was the testimony of the Arcturian slug-bear itself, translated through a series of melodious belches, that swayed the council. Dr. Sarah Chen was officially granted a position at Galactic Central Hospital, with the caveat that all her procedures be thoroughly documented for future study. "This is either the beginning of a new era in intergalactic medicine," the head counselor announced, "or the start of the most entertaining medical malpractice suit in galactic history." Back at the hospital, life settled into a new rhythm. Patients from across the galaxy began requesting the human treatment, drawn by tales of Dr. Chen's unorthodox but effective methods. The emergency room took on a carnival-like atmosphere, with the sounds of Earth music often drifting out into the corridors, accompanied by the surprised yelps of alien patients discovering the healing power of laughter. Dr. Zixnax found herself adapting to the chaos with surprising ease. She even caught herself humming YMCA while performing a delicate tentacle reattachment surgery, much to her own shock and Sarah's delight. "See?" Sarah grinned, passing Zixnax a surgical tool that looked suspiciously like a bedazzled spatula. "You're getting the hang of it. Next thing you know, you'll be curing Zentaxian scale rot with a rousing rendition of Stayin' Alive." Zixnax surprised herself by chuckling. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Dr. Chen. Though I must admit, your methods have shown surprising efficacy." "Oh, you're making me blush," Sarah teased. "But seriously, Doc Zix, we make a pretty good team. You've got the encyclopedic knowledge of every species in the galaxy, and I've got the human knack for turning any situation into a party. Together, we're unstoppable." As if on cue, the hospital intercom crackled to life. "Attention all staff. We have an incoming emergency. Hive Mind Collective experiencing a severe case of cosmic existential dread. All personnel with knowledge of philosophy, interpretive dance, or knock-knock jokes, please report to Emergency Bay 12 immediately." Sarah's eyes lit up with that now familiar mix of excitement and mischief. "Ooh, that sounds like a job for the dynamic duo. What do you say, Doc Zix, ready to go cure some cosmic angst?" Zixnax looked at her human colleague, then at the bizarre assortment of medical instruments they'd cobbled together, including, for some reason, a rubber chicken, and felt a surge of something she could only describe as joy. "Lead the way, Dr. Chen," she said, her tentacles curling in anticipation. "I believe it's time to show the universe what human-inspired medicine can really do." As they raced towards their next impossible patient, leaving a trail of bewildered but oddly hopeful alien staff in their wake, Zixnax realized something profound. The galaxy was vast, often terrifying, and filled with ailments that defied conventional treatment. But with a little human creativity, a lot of alien knowledge, and a willingness to occasionally break into song mid-surgery, anything was possible. The era of galactic groovy medicine had begun, and somewhere out there, amid the stars, the healthiest Arcturian slug-bear in history burped its approval.